Do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years?
Too many.
Okay. It's 5. Okay, now 5 is a lot, right? I'm gonna give you some credit. Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years?
Counting or not counting gang violence?
If you had a daughter and she was 10 and she was going to give birth and she would and she was going to give birth and she was going to live. Would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered.
Oh, okay, great. So
they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. They committed less crimes.
Maybe they were afraid. I mean, 4,000 Black men, women, and children were in violent lynch mobs.
If that's your explanation, but I guess
racial terror permeated American culture for hundreds of years.
Black America is worse than it has been
that affected
in the last 80 years.
The generational psyche of an entire group of people?
No, I'm sure it did. I'm not discounting it.
Question to somebody who I know because I don't know you.
Some future president.
Donald Trump Jr. Yeah, Donald Trump Jr. My question is, how do you support your father for the things that he said, such as he believes that you should grab women by the...
He didn't say that. I want to say something. Let me do it.
That's a ridiculous question, first and foremost. Because I'm sure you've never said anything bad in your life.
Are you mad? I'm sure. But you just called liberals.
Candace Owens is spiraling right now after the shocking and very public death of her closest ally, Charlie Kirk. What makes this story even crazier is that not only was Charlie taken out during a live event, but Candace is now hinting that it wasn't random at all. She's calling it a planned hit and promising to expose the truth. And with the FBI stepping in, plus whispers of private jets, witches, and political enemies, this has quickly turned into one of the wildest and most divisive scandals we've seen in years. Candace Owens is absolutely unraveling right now after the shocking death of her closest ally, Charlie Kirk. The two weren't just political partners. They were practically family, sitting on panels together, touring college campuses, and fighting side by side in culture wars for years. So when news broke that Charlie was gunned down in front of a live audience, Candace immediately jumped online begging her followers to pray, but within hours that grief turned into rage. She's now vowing to uncover the truth, calling the attack a planned execution, and promising she won't stop until those responsible are exposed. And honestly, it's not hard to see why people are already whispering about conspiracy. Witnesses say the shooter hit Charlie with a single, precise shot to the neck, the kind of hit that doesn't feel random. Reports even claim the gunman was hundreds of yards away, making it look less like chaos and more like a professional job. And now, with the FBI stepping in and confirming that they've devoted full resources to the investigation, this is no longer just a tragic shooting. It's spiraling into something that could shake up the entire political landscape. Charlie Kirk's final moments played out in front of a packed auditorium at Utah Valley University, where he was hosting one of his signature Turning Point USA campaign stops. The crowd was already buzzing, the energy tense, as Charlie sparred with an audience member over one of his most controversial talking points. People were shouting, clapping, and debating as the exchange grew more heated. But then everything shifted in an instant. A single, deafening crack rang out across the auditorium. Witnesses say the sound was so sharp, so precise, that for a split second, many thought it was just a prop or some kind of stunt. But then the horror set in. Charlie grabbed his neck and collapsed almost immediately. According to early reports, the bullet tore straight through his carotid artery, one of the body's most vital blood vessels, which explains why he lost consciousness almost instantly and why medical personnel on the scene were helpless to stop the bleeding. Several witnesses described the moment as surreal, saying the crowd went from chanting and arguing to pure chaos in a matter of seconds. Some people rushed to his side, while others scrambled for the exits, fearing there could be more gunfire. But what's raising eyebrows is the way it happened. Multiple outlets are reporting that the shooter wasn't inside the auditorium at all. The shot came from outside, estimated at nearly 200 yards away. Think about that. A moving target in the middle of a debate struck with pinpoint accuracy in the neck. That's not the kind of shot a random attacker makes. That's the kind of precision that screams planning, calculation, maybe even professional training. And that's exactly why speculation is already running wild. Was this just a politically motivated lone wolf? Or was Charlie Kirk taken out by someone with a far more organized agenda? As devastating as Charlie Kirk's death is on its own, what makes this story almost unbearable is the fact that his wife, Erica, and their 2 young children were right there in the audience when it happened. Imagine that. One moment they're watching him do what he's known for, commanding a stage and debating policies, and the next, their lives are shattered in the most public and traumatic way possible. Reports say Erica was seen screaming for help as she tried to reach her husband, while bystanders rushed to shield their little ones from the horrific scene. Their daughter had just celebrated her 3rd birthday, and their baby boy only turned 1 this year. To think that children that young will grow up not just without their father, but with the memory, however foggy, of witnessing his final moments, it's the kind of trauma that lingers for a lifetime. And the heartbreak doesn't end there. Friends close to the family say Erica had always been Charlie's anchor, the one who kept things steady at home while he toured nonstop for Turning Point USA. Now, in the blink of an eye, she's a widow left to raise 2 toddlers alone. And the cruel twist is that they didn't just lose a husband and father, they lost him in the most brutal, public way imaginable. People who were in the auditorium said the look on her face was something they'll never forget, a mixture of disbelief, horror, and helplessness. It's the kind of image that reminds us that beyond politics, beyond controversy, this was a man with a family who adored him, and their lives will never be the same again. But here's where the story gets complicated, because as much as people are mourning Charlie Kirk, not everyone is wearing black. Almost immediately after the news broke, old tweets, interviews, and viral clips of Charlie started flooding social media, with critics using his own words to argue why they can't bring themselves to feel sympathy. One video in particular resurfaced, where Charlie was asked what he would do if his own 10-year-old daughter became pregnant through assault. His answer? That she should carry the pregnancy to term. The clip went viral all over again, with many calling it disturbing, cruel, and hypocritical now that tragedy has struck his own family. Another moment being dragged back into the spotlight is when Charlie claimed Black Americans were better off before the civil rights movement, suggesting that subjugation and fear somehow kept crime lower. The backlash then was fierce, but now people are revisiting those comments and saying that this is the same man others are expecting them to mourn. Critics argue that his entire career was built on being inflammatory, on pushing buttons, on showing zero empathy for communities he disagreed with. And now, in death, some feel it's impossible to extend empathy back to him. But on the other side, his supporters are calling this reaction disgusting, saying that regardless of what Charlie believed or said, no one deserves to be assassinated in front of their family. They point out that this wasn't just a political leader lost. This was a husband, a father, a friend, and a son. Prominent voices on the right are rallying around that message, framing his death as a chilling warning about where political violence in America could lead. Even some neutral commentators are weighing in, saying that celebrating his death crosses a dangerous line, no matter how polarizing he was. And that's what makes this moment so explosive. It's a raw, divisive collision of grief and resentment. For some, Charlie's death is a national tragedy, proof that free speech and debate are under attack. For others, it's karma, the inevitable consequence of a man who spent his life fueling division. Love him or hate him, the conversation around Charlie Kirk hasn't ended with his death. If anything, it's only become louder, messier, and even more polarizing than when he was alive. And just when you thought this story couldn't get any stranger, in comes one of the most bizarre twists yet: witches. Yes, you heard that right. Days before Charlie Kirk was killed, the feminist outlet Jezebel actually ran a piece bragging about hiring Etsy witches to cast spells on him. The article wasn't subtle either. The writer openly described placing a curse to make everyone hate him, and even admitted debating whether to splurge on a pricier $50 spell booster to make it work faster. At the time, most people dismissed it as tongue-in-cheek satire. But after Charlie's shocking death, the internet is buzzing with conspiracy theories about whether that curse somehow manifested in the most tragic way possible. Now, to be clear, Jezebel quickly distanced themselves from the violence, insisting the timing was nothing more than an insane coincidence. The witches themselves even condemned the shooting. But the irony was just too on the nose for the internet to ignore. Screenshots of the article spread like wildfire, with people pointing out that the so-called curse went public only 2 days before Charlie was taken out. Some are calling it darkly prophetic, while others see it as reckless, proof of how much animosity was directed toward him even before the gunfire. And this witchcraft angle has given the story a whole new viral life online. TikToks are dissecting the Jezebel piece frame by frame. Twitter threads are spinning out wild theories about occult interference, and the memes practically wrote themselves. Whether you buy into the supernatural or not, the timing is undeniably eerie, and it's yet another reminder of just how deeply Charlie Kirk divided people. Even in death, his name has become a lightning rod, not just in politics, but now in pop culture and, apparently, in witchcraft lore too. The internet's reaction to Charlie Kirk's death has been nothing short of explosive, and honestly, it feels like every corner of social media has picked a side. On one end, there are people mourning him as a political martyr, posting tributes, old clips of his speeches, and calling his death proof that America has lost the ability to disagree without violence. Hashtags like hashtag Justice for Charlie and hashtag Pray for Erica started trending within hours, with supporters flooding timelines with messages of solidarity for his widow and their 2 young children. But then there's the other side, and it's just as loud. Critics wasted no time resurfacing his most controversial takes, saying flat out that they can't feel bad for someone who never showed empathy himself. One viral tweet read, "Not having empathy for someone who didn't extend it to others is a normal human reaction. Should have happened? No. But do I have to mourn him? Also no." Another user went even further, posting an old clip of Charlie saying he can't stand the word empathy alongside the caption. Funny how people are begging for compassion now. Those posts racked up millions of views in a matter of hours. Still, there's a middle ground emerging. People who admit they didn't agree with Charlie's politics at all, but are devastated by the way his family was forced to watch it unfold. Tweets like, "Say what you want about the man, but his wife and kids did not deserve this trauma," are gaining traction, especially among users who normally wouldn't defend him. It's that push and pull, empathy versus apathy, grief versus schadenfreude, that's making the public reaction so volatile. And maybe that's the real takeaway. Even in death, Charlie Kirk is as polarizing as he was in life. For his supporters, he's a symbol of free speech silenced. For his critics, he's a cautionary tale of a man whose words came back to haunt him. And for everyone else caught in between, it's just a heartbreaking reminder that 2 very young children lost their father in the most horrific way possible, no matter what anyone thought of him. If there's one thing that proves just how seismic this moment really is, it's the fact that Charlie Kirk's death has triggered a wave of reactions from the highest levels of power, and not just from his usual allies. Within hours, Donald Trump himself posted on Truth Social, calling Charlie great, even legendary, and declaring that no one understood America's youth the way he did. Trump wrote that Charlie was loved, admired, and that his death was a devastating loss for the movement they built together. For Trump to go that far publicly, it says a lot about how closely aligned Charlie was with the former president's political machine. But the shock didn't stop there. Former President Barack Obama also weighed in, condemning the violence and stressing that no matter the political differences, there's simply no place for this kind of bloodshed in a democracy. He and Michelle even sent prayers to Charlie's wife and children, a gesture that stunned many who never thought they'd hear Obama publicly defending Kirk's family. And then came Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, both issuing statements that sounded eerily similar, condemning political violence outright, calling it despicable, and promising that the nation must not allow this tragedy to spiral into more division. Biden even said flatly, "There is no place in our country for this kind of violence. It must end now." What's striking here is the rare unity. These are leaders who almost never agree on anything, yet suddenly they're all speaking the same language, not as Democrats and Republicans, but as Americans watching democracy itself get threatened by a bullet. And in a political climate where the country feels more divided than ever, the fact that Charlie's death has momentarily pulled both sides together underscores just how serious and symbolic this tragedy is. It's no longer about Charlie Kirk the man, or even Charlie Kirk the conservative figurehead. It's about the bigger question of whether America can continue to debate, argue, and fight over ideas without resorting to deadly violence. In that sense, the political fallout is bigger than partisanship. It's about the survival of democracy itself. Candace Owens isn't just grieving. She's gone full crusader. In the hours after Charlie was rushed to the hospital, her first tweets were raw and desperate. "Everyone, please stop what you're doing and pray for Charlie." But when the news of his death was confirmed, that sorrow hardened into something sharper. Candace began demanding answers, insisting that this was no random act of violence. She tweeted, "Who called the hit on Charlie? We need answers. I can't process this, but I won't stop until we know the truth." And then came one of the wildest twists yet. A Twitter user flagged suspicious flight data, pointing out that a private jet with the tail number N88KG left Provo Airport just an hour after the shooting. 30 minutes into its flight, the plane mysteriously dropped off radar, something that's technically illegal, only to reappear later heading straight back toward Utah. The implication? Someone may have been trying to vanish, at least temporarily, right after Charlie was taken out. Candace didn't brush it off either. She amplified the post, begging her followers for information and even sharing her tips email. She made it crystal clear. She's convinced this was a coordinated attack, and she won't rest until every piece of the puzzle is uncovered. To her, this wasn't just an attack on Charlie. It was an attack on their movement. And she might not be alone in thinking that. Because almost immediately after the chaos, the FBI confirmed they were stepping in. In a rare late-night statement, agents from the Salt Lake City field office revealed they had already deployed tactical, investigative, and intelligence resources to the case, calling it their highest priority. They made it clear this isn't being treated like an isolated incident. It's a full-scale federal probe. Which leaves us with the biggest question of all. Who wanted Charlie Kirk on, and why? Was this truly the work of a lone gunman with a grudge, or was it something far more organized? A professional hit meant to send a message? Either way, the truth is far from clear, and until we get it, Candace Owens isn't backing down. But what do you think? Was Charlie Kirk the victim of random violence? Or is this the start of a much bigger story waiting to explode?